everyone. Oh, wow. We've got a lot of people in the chat already that have been here for a while, it looks like. That's cool. 6 likes. Thank you, everyone. Well, I'm glad that everybody's here already. Looks like Dinosaurs Terror World is in. Rad Pteranodon. Oh, Potato Derp. Who else is in here? Potato Derp says, I just fed my buffalo beetles an entire dead shrimp. They devoured it in minutes. There was this huge pile of beetle larvae on it. Yeah, they are pretty efficient, aren't they? Let's see. Wow. I'm trying to catch up. Oh, we've got Genius21 in here. Polar. Gordius is here. Robert Gear, you made it. Excellent. Red Pteranodon, I'm new here. Thanks for joining us. Oh, Potato Derp's here too. Nice. Wow, 11 likes and 11 people in the stream already. Tortoise Fan, hello from lovely Greece. Excellent. I've seen you in the streams before, but I didn't know that you were in Greece. That's awesome. Camellia Stevens is here. Excellent. Armanestra Pate, Verenid Guy. Excellent. Dinosaurs Terror World says, you got your shirt from the 5,000 subscribers contest, and I would love to see it if you ever do a video with it. Oh, Rad Pteranodon says, your beard is nice. Thank you. Good morning, Verenid Guy. I got my cat. He's deciding whether or not he wants to attack me. Tim Sippings, hi from the UK. Excellent. So we've got at least 4 continents going on right now. Oh, 5, because Daniel McSween is in Trinidad. Hey, love from Trinidad. Excellent. And a big hello from Transylvania as well. Wow, that doesn't happen all the time. Okay, Cosmo, you need to calm down. I've got a really angry cat right now trying to attack my legs, so sorry if I seem a little bit distracted. Trying to see if I can calm him down as well as do the live stream. Can you hear him? Gordia says, I just caught a cello spider in my bathroom yesterday. Ooh, fed it a moth today? Cool. Yeah, I like cellar spiders. They're one of the spiders that my wife doesn't mind so much. She likes jumping spiders and doesn't mind cellar spiders because they're so good at catching bugs in the house. Oh, you feeling all right? You look pale. I think that's just because of the lighting today, because I've got, the way it's working, I've got window light and other light hitting me as well. I think that's making me look like that. What shirt am I wearing? I'm wearing Isopods, do your dirty work. Sorry, that's kind of a funny angle, but there it is. That's the one I've got on today. Figured I'd wear that for the live stream, even if you can't really see it very well. Camellia Stevens, I'm going to watch this from the animal room. Excellent. Daniel McSween says, I have an odd-shaped aquarium. Could you make a recommendation of what to do with it? What shape is your aquarium? Genius21, what are you doing in this stream? Mostly Q&A. There may be some projects I want to talk about as well, but mostly Q&A because that's what I usually get is a lot of it. And when I try to do a themed live stream, I usually end up doing Q&A. So that's probably what I'll end up doing. Okay, Daniel McSween says it's 6 inches deep and 3 feet long, but only 4 inches wide. Wow, that is a really interestingly shaped aquarium. There aren't a whole lot of things you could do with it. I would say some vernal pool organisms would be interesting in a tank like that. You could look at possibly doing a river tank, like a fairly high flow tank, but I think that might be kind of impractical with those dimensions. I would probably honestly do a vernal pool organism tank. You could do some really interesting things with that. So when I talk about vernal pool organisms, I'm thinking, things like triops, fairy shrimp, clam shrimp, stuff like that. They're used to small bodies of water. They're also used to stagnant bodies of water, so filtration and so on are not a must. You can get along without them. So I would say that could be a pretty cool option. What do you think about that one? So Verenid Guy says, ooh, projects. Have you given more thought to pressurized CO2? Yes, and I may do DIY first to see if I can do that, just because It's cheaper not in the long term, but it's cheaper in the short term to set up and then see how that goes for me. And if not, I may do the pressurized CO2, because I'm definitely interested in doing CO2. I think I need to save my Indler tank right now. I mean, the plants are doing okay, but there's a little too much algae in there and it doesn't look all that great. I need to get the balance turned. So yeah. Let's see. Camilla Stevens says, any morning gecko setup updates in the future? Possibly. What I'm thinking of doing actually is having my sister, I'm going to commission a table for my sister. I may have mentioned this before on another stream. She's a carpenter, and have her make a table so I can put the two 12 by 12 by 18s next to each other. And this is what I'm thinking of doing. Because they're always laying eggs, of course, and separating the babies from the adult tank can be tricky. I mean, I can do it, but it's kind of time consuming sometimes and a little difficult, especially the more hiding places I provide and the hiding places are beneficial, the harder it is to do that. So what I'm thinking of doing is just putting all the adults in one vivarium, waiting until they lay, drop a dozen eggs or whatever, and then switch them over to the empty vivarium. And then as the babies hatch in the other one, I can let them grow out, and then as I sell them off, once I've sold off all the babies that have hatched from those eggs, I switch them back to the other vivarium, and by that time they will have dropped eggs in the other one. So that's kind of what I'm thinking of doing there. It might be easier than what I'm doing now. Let's see. And Gordea says, speaking of that, how do you breed triops? Breeding triops is super easy. Basically, you keep adult triops, and within about 2 weeks or so of hatching, sometimes sooner, they are laying eggs. And it doesn't matter how many triops you have. You have 1, you have 14, whatever, they're going to be laying eggs. And the eggs merely need to be dried. So you take out some of the sand. I would recommend taking out maybe maybe a tablespoon of sand, approximately, tablespoon of sand, drying it, and then you add it to distilled water at a warm enough temperature, and they'll hatch once you've dried it out. And it'll last for years like that. Don't put too much of the sand. Like some people have tried this. They have a setup with sand in it, and they dry the whole setup and then add water to it. That doesn't work very well. I recommend highly taking small amounts of the dried sand, like I said, a tablespoon, and adding that to half gallon of water or even a quart of water, and then letting that at the proper temperature and with proper light, letting that hatch, because if you do it the other way, there's just too much waste and so on in the old setup that the young triops are overwhelmed with bacteria. It doesn't work very well. But it's very easy. I've done it many, many times to do it the way I just described. You can get, many, many generations, indefinite generations of triops that way. Robert Gear says, so I decided to upgrade my beta to a 10-gallon. Sorry, I'm still catching up on the comments here, everyone. Where are we? So I decided to upgrade my betta to a 10-gallon. Any plant recommendations? And if so, where would I get them? Well, there are quite a few that'll do well with bettas. It kind of depends on your lighting, but most 3 that I would suggest, definitely if you're going low light, like light that comes with the enclosure, comes with the tank, I would suggest Java fern, Java moss. Java moss is not going to grow very fast with bettas necessarily, just because bettas like it warmer, and Java moss doesn't necessarily grow very fast if it's warm, but it would do fine. Anubias, like Anubias bartieri nana, or any of the Nana petites, would be great in there with a betta, and some of the easy cryptocoryns like Cryptocorin wentai would be great with bettas. So those are some options that are all low light. If you're going a little higher light, some other plants you could consider, depending on how you've got your cover. You could do guppy grass, you could do hornwort, or a couple of other good and easy options. A lot of those are available at big box pet stores. They're also available at places like Aquabid or local fish stores, or if you know other hobbyists in the area, a lot of times you can find those plants. So those are some options for you. I forget where you're located in the world. If I knew that, I might be able to give you some more specific information, but that's something to start with. Branded Guy says, yes, it's hard to drop several hundred on a CO2 system. Indeed it is. Potato derp. Something unusual happened to my only female ghost shrimp. She shed her skin, turned white for a few days, and then died. There goes my shrimp breeding plans. Do you know what happened? Well, it's hard to say, but if you have a shrimp that molts and then dies afterwards, it could be anything from being attacked by something else, because they're very soft when they molt, of course, and very vulnerable. Like I've mentioned before, how I've seen Corydoras that usually leave shrimp alone just slurp up like a whole adult soft shrimp. I've seen that happen. Eat it in just a very short time because it is so soft. So they're really vulnerable during that time, and any number of things could have happened. Sometimes when they molt and then die, it does mean there's like a mineral imbalance. They're not getting enough minerals, or there sometimes can be too many minerals that they're getting, and that can be a problem too. So it's hard to say, but those could be some of the things that happen. The fact that it turned white, that's a little confusing to me. Turned white and then died after it molted. It's a little weird. Okay. Powerful lenses in the house. Best beard on YouTube. Thank you. Branded guy said, Robert, that totally depends on your tech level. Low light, no CO2 versus medium, high light and CO2. If you go low light, the easiest. Then Anubias, ferns, crypts, and maybe Buse plants. Oh, that's another good suggestion, the Bucephalandra. Those can be really good too. All right. So Daniel McSween says, sounds cool. I've been doing something to sort native species. There's a problem with mosquito larvae, though. So I was thinking of something that could help that. Well, triops will eat mosquito larvae. So that's perhaps a viable option. If you focus on triops, they probably nibble on everything else, at least to some degree, but they will help control the mosquito larvae. So, Dinosaurs Terror World, how are the isopods? Doing great. We've got lots of babies. I've been watching the Porcelio Hoffman's egg eye, the Titans. The babies are getting bigger. When they first showed up, they were about the same size as a dwarf white isopod, more or less, and now they're quite a bit bigger than that. They're still smaller than an adult, say, Porcelio scabber, but they're not too far off, so they're growing. Let's see. Our Minister Patty says, I have seen new brine shrimp hatching system. They start in dark plastic bottles for, sorry, I'm just trailing back. They start in dark plastic bottles for 36 hours, put a hole in the bottle, encouraging the live ones to go into the light tank. Interesting. I wonder how that works. Usually light is a trigger for hatching, so I'm interested in how that works. As one of the triggers for hatching. It's not the only trigger, but that is interesting. If they hole in the bottle, encouraging the live ones to go into light tank, so there's like a dark tank and a light tank. Interesting. They're definitely attracted to light. That would be nice to be able to sort them that way. Potato Derp says, from my experience, triops actually hatch better with clean water rich with minerals. Interesting. That has been opposite of my experience, that they will hatch, you'll get a low hatch with mineral rich water, but a high hatch with low mineral water. It's interesting. I wonder, is it the same species? Is it Longocaudatus that you are talking about? Camellia Stevens says, why am I losing the chat so fast? I don't know why. The drying out the whole setup is what I do in bacteria. It does explode when water is added again. Yeah, that's been my experience. Dinosaurs Terror World says, are mealworms better feeders than superworms? It totally depends on what you're looking for. Superworms can be a bigger mouthful when they're adults, of course. They're larger, so it partly depends on the size of what you're feeding and what their feeding response is to different sizes. Also, superworms are reputed to be slightly softer exoskeletons and more digestible, I guess. I'm not sure how true that is, but that's a commonly repeated, I guess, feature. And then I would say that another thing, mealworms are easier to breed in some ways because you don't have to separate the larvae out and let them pupate separately, and then, there's that. But nutritionally, I saw a video not too long ago on the comparison of nutrients, and nutritionally they're not that different. I mean, there are a few differences, but they're pretty comparable in most ways, in most respects, nutrient-wise. So I would just say it kind of depends on what you want to do with them, what you're feeding, and so on. Rented guy says, oh, Nana Petite, those look awesome when they carpet. They do indeed. I have a tiny one and it's growing. I've seen it produce some leaves, but well, at least one leaf. But I've never seen, I mean, mine hasn't carpet. Camellia Stevens says she's never seen it carpet. It does take forever to do. It takes a long time. And Vernon Guy says, was the ghost shrimp milky or white before it molted? That's a good question. Potato Herb says, she wasn't attacked. She was fine for a few days, but was completely white. The shrimp then suddenly died for no apparent reason. Interesting. I'm wondering about if it is a mineral balance thing or if there's something else going on. Potato Derp says, try ups like water with a lot of bicarbonates, but avoid any chlorides. Chronicles of Chris's Fish Room. Good morning, all. Cleaning tanks and listening live for a change. Have a great weekend, everyone. Well, thanks for joining us. Chronicles of Chris's Fish Room. Rented Guy said, your teeny Nana Petite is incredible. That was such an awesome find. Yeah, thank you. My wife Kelly said when I was at the store, she was there with me, and she said, if you don't get it, you're going to be sad. So you better get it. And I did. And I'm not sad. I'm glad that I did. So worked out pretty nicely. Oh, we've got 18 people in the live stream and 18 likes so far. So that's a pretty good ratio, I would say. Excellent. Well, let's see. Is there anything I missed? If I missed something that somebody posted earlier, go ahead and let me know. Mr. Vivarium's in with us. Yo. Welcome. Rented Guy, is your tap water naturally on the harder side or the softer side? Mine's hard. Very hard tap water. Generally referred to as liquid rock around here. African cichlids doing it really well in it straight out of the tap. Down the wormhole. Just got here. Thanks for joining us. And now we're 20 for 20. Very nice. Yeah, exactly. Great for rift cichlids. A lot of people keep them here because of that, because it's so easy to just have them straight out of the tap. One thing, we have a really big fish farm for African cichlids specifically here, not too far away from me, about an hour away. It's called Live Fish Direct. At least I think that's what the online presence is called, and it's called Tropical Fish Wholesalers is I think what it's on the brick and mortar store. But anyway, I've been down there several times, and they raise fish out of water that comes, it's like there's a spring that is geothermally, it's a geothermal spring, and so the water comes in, they pipe it right out of the spring at 78 degrees, and the mineral content is perfect for African cichlids. So this guy is running, like, I don't remember how many water changes a day, but it just has trickling through that system from the spring through his African cichlid tanks. He never has to do anything other than that for water changes, and it's like getting 8 water changes a day or something, and they are incredible walking into that place and looking at those fish. They open on, I think it's Saturdays and Fridays or something, for the public. They're mostly a wholesaler that and they ship out, but they do allow public in there once in a while, and I've been down there, and it's incredible.
Okay, I'm going to steal and embarrass you. You'll see when I get back.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tiamo. Okay. Cedar Lechner Riley says, do you have any recommendations for where to buy Titan isopod cultures online? I live in, is that Minnesota, I want to say? And I may be wrong. I can't remember all the state abbreviations. If it's Montana or what is it? What is MN? Sorry. I used to know what it is. I can't remember. Haven't found any local breeders so far. Well, I would say captiveisopoda.com is a great source. That's where I got mine. And he has all kinds of isopods, a crazy number of different varieties of isopods. So that is a good source, although he may be sold out. I will be selling them fairly soon. I've got a waiting list at this point, and only about, I don't know how many babies I have, but it's going to be a while because I need to keep some of the babies, of course, to build up my population. So I will be selling them, but that's a good source. If you want to try, what's the Facebook group is Isopod Classifieds, I believe, and people sell them on there as well. So that could help. And I know that Alan of Captive Isopoda is there as well. So Potato Derp says, I thought, oh no, TFFBC Creedmoor, I'm enjoying your broadcast. Excellent, thank you for joining us. And Potato Derp says, I thought I caught all the ram's horn snails in my 60-gallon tank, but they hid eggs. They got almost to adult size in a week, and now I have a giant army of snails. which are laying eggs of their own. Yeah, they don't waste any time, do they? Uh, have you thought about an assassin snails? Oh, everybody says bye. Oh, she probably missed it. Okay. Oh, maybe. Oh, no, she was just locking the door. Okay. Down the wormhole says, that sounds amazing. Neat to see. Branded guy says, goodbye to your wife. See your wife? Yes. Okay. I'm sorry I missed it. I wanted to tell her that, but I think I missed her. Okay, it is Minnesota. Excellent. Branded guy says, my tap water is naturally on the softer side, but I have to add sea chem equilibrium on the plants that develop a calcium deficiency. Yeah, it's nice to have the softer water because you can add things to it rather than have to start out with hard water and have to take things out for certain fish. But generally, I end up keeping things that don't mind. Like I have multis, I have endlers, I have goldfish, things like that, and they're fine in the harder water. In fact, they prefer it. So works out for me, but it makes me sad that it's going to be harder for me to keep, for example, wild type bettas or certain tetras or things like that without manipulating my water. Branded guy says, potato a puffer tank. Potato Dirt says, yeah, a pea puffer would love it in there. I probably wouldn't have to feed it. Well, this is an interesting thing about pea puffers. For a while, you wouldn't have to feed it, but it wouldn't be that long because pea puffers will often, not always, but a lot of them will kill a lot more snails than they'll eat. So they might take a few days, depending on the particular puffer, to kill all the snails in your tank, and then you don't have any. They might miss a few, and it'll take a while, but that could be a problem. But I like the idea of a puffer tank. If you set one up separately and then just put snails in, you could keep it fed. Just feed them some of the small snails. You would have a perpetual food supply if you do it that way. But if you keep it in the same snake, the same tank, I don't know where I got snake from, then you'd probably end up with more dead snails and water quality issues because of that than you would with a happy puffer in the long term. But Rogers Aquarium says, go get Kelly and we'll do an Aquarimax podcast for us. I wish we could. She just actually left, which is part of the reason I'm doing this live stream today, because generally on Saturday, we're involved in family things and so on. But since she's gone, I figured I could take an hour and do a live stream while she's out at a workshop. So she just barely left. Janice McCafferty says, is betta water condition enough for nerite snails? In terms of making the tap water safe for them, like removing chlorine and chloramine and so on, yeah, it should be. It generally has the same kinds of things that you'd need for nerite snails. If you are indicating, like mineral-wise, is it going to add enough minerals for nerite shells and things like that? Probably not. But I think what you're asking is if it's going to be enough to make water safe in terms of chloramines, chlorines, heavy metal, that kind of stuff. Yeah. And Branded guy says, or a single figure 8 puffer. Yeah, that would take care of a lot of snails too. Although, and you probably couldn't keep a lot else with it, but it would be cool. I love puffers. I've had puffers, several puffers over the years, and they're fun. But the only species I've had is a pea puffer, but they're amazing. So a piece of cuttlebone too. Yeah, if you add a piece of cuttlebone for the minerals, then you should be covered pretty much. I mean, you want some calcium in the water if you can get some in there, but the cuttlebone will help mostly as the snail will go up to it and eat it. So it's nice to have some calcium dissolved in the water, and that the cuttlebone might not help a lot with that, but it will provide some that it can eat, and that will help a lot. So, Rented guy, have you ever tried a brackish tank? I actually have 4 of them right now, but they are all basically the same kind of setup, and that is Opaiula shrimp, Hawaiian Opaiula shrimp, which are a brackish shrimp that is endemic to Hawaii. And there I have 1 2-gallon, 1 3-gallon, 1 5-gallon, 1 10-gallon tank. And the species that are in there besides the Opaiula are just Malaysian trumpet snails, which can also do really well in brackish. The brackish concentration varies per tank, but it varies per tank, but it's approximately 50% in most of them. And the Malaysian trumpet snails do great in there. The Opaiula, that's perfect for them. They breed like crazy at that as long as they have enough space. And I also have a type of mini moss ball in there that is really cool. It is a brackish moss ball. Marimo moss balls, the large ones that you find in pet stores, can do fine in brackish water too if it's not too brackish, but not as brackish as this. So you wouldn't want to put one in 50% seawater, but these moss balls can do just fine in that. And they grow extremely slowly. I think I bought one 3 or 4 years ago, and now I have a whole bunch of little ones, but they're all tiny. They don't grow very fast at all. They're extremely slow growing. So that is what I've been doing with brackish tanks for the past, let's see, when did I start? 2004, I think, is I started with Opaiula and brackish tanks. So I've done brackish tanks for a long time, but I haven't done a lot of variety in brackish tanks, just Opaiula shrimp. I really like them. They're super easy. You can leave them for a month and not do anything. I have a tank in my office, a couple of tanks in my office that I have not had to do any maintenance on besides feeding and topping off. I haven't had to change water in 3 years. There's very few species I would recommend doing that with, but Opaiula is one of them. So there you go. Powerful Lance says, I'm out. Got stuff to do this afternoon. Cheers. Well, thanks for joining us. Powerful Lance, glad that you were here. Potato Derp says, my buffalo beetle colony is going nuts. Anything dead I drop in there gets covered in larvae and then it disappears. Yeah, they are amazing. I kind of wish I hadn't had to get rid of mine, but I was worried that they're supposed to be able to give diseases to chickens, and part of the reason I was keeping them was to feed them to chickens because I wanted the other species, and then found out I had that species and that they can make chickens sick, so that's why I got rid of them. But they're very crazy. I've thought about using them as a cleanup crew in my cricket bin, actually. Some people do that because they're very efficient at eating dead crickets. And you're welcome, Janice. I hope that helps. Genius21, do you know about any isopod seller in or close to Alabama? Yeah, captiveisopod.com is in Georgia, so it's not too far away. I mean, if you're going to be driving, it could be quite a bit of a drive, but as far as shipping goes, it's not too far. Brennan Guide says, do you find it particularly difficult to maintain brackish conditions? Not in the tanks that I work with, partly because I don't have to do water changes. All I have to do is top off, and the shrimp are so forgiving of fluctuations, and it's probably actually good for them because in the wild they will encounter those same fluctuations with rainfall and so on, that not a big deal. I can let a tank start to evaporate and get close to, I can actually, if I needed to, I could go higher than marine concentration with the shrimp and they would be okay. And I can go quite a bit lower for a while. They don't really tolerate complete freshwater conditions well for very long at all. And definitely, from what I understand, will not breed in it. But other than that, it's been super easy. I just top off when it looks like I need to do that. Ethan's Reptiles. Hi, welcome. Janice says, I just got a dwarf Mexican crayfish. Any tips? That's a species I haven't kept yet. I wish I could give you some tips on that, but they are cool. Did you get one of the orange ones? I really like them. I think they're interesting, and I've read about them a little bit. I've thought about keeping them, but I haven't done it yet. So Mr. Vivarium says, planning on doing a vampire crab setup soon. Ooh, that is cool. If you don't know what a vampire crab is, those of you who haven't heard of them, they are a very interesting little terrestrial crab. They live in a situation a lot like a dart frog. You make a tropical vivarium, put a little pool in there, and they will live in a situation like that. They'll hunt insects and things like that. I believe they will pick up fish food and things like that as well. And they will breed in a setup like that. They don't need to return to the ocean to breed. Like hermit crabs, for example, must return to the ocean to breed, even if they live on land the rest of their lives. Their larvae are aquatic and marine. They need to live in the ocean for a few weeks. But these vampire crabs don't. They produce crabs in these setups, and they can live in a freshwater. They have a freshwater pool, and they live on land, and they can live in that setup and breed in that setup, which I think is fascinating, and I would love to set one up sometime. So that is cool. Rented guy says, if they're well fed, they aren't harmful to a planted community tank. Okay. Are we talking about the same vampire crab? Because sometimes common names can be confusing. I'm thinking about the Geosarma genus, the terrestrial ones. Is that the same one you're thinking of, Janice? Or not Janice, Mr. Vivarium? Andrew Kerrigan said, I have a question. Can you culture different species of isopods in the same container? Can be done. Not necessarily recommended, but can be done. It kind of depends on the size of the container, too. For example, in my leopard gecko vivarium, I have 2 or 3 species of isopods. I know I have zebra isopods and powder blue isopods doing well in the same vivarium. And I've had Oniscus ocellus and Porcellio scabra by accident cultured in the same container for a while. So it can be done. But what I would especially not recommend is putting small dwarf isopods with larger ones, like the dwarf whites with oranges, for example. When I first got my orange my Spanish orange culture, it was contaminated with dwarf whites. And that wasn't a problem at first, but eventually it became a problem. The whites started outcompeting the oranges, and I had to remove all of the oranges carefully and then turn the other culture into a dwarf white culture and restart a culture in a different container with the oranges, and they did much better after that. But yeah, the smaller ones will tend to outcompete the larger ones. So that can be a problem. But the larger the container, like if you put them in a very large vivarium, they seem to do better in multiple species, probably because they're microenvironments, and so there's some resource partitioning. They, kind of find different niches where they do better. So, but if you're doing a small culture, I wouldn't necessarily recommend it for ideal production. Not that they can't survive and even breed. When I had the oranges in with the whites, the oranges were still breeding. They just weren't producing anywhere near what I wanted. So it kind of depends on your purpose. If your purpose is maximum production, I would not recommend it at all. If your purpose is just to have a bunch of isopods living together, could work. One thing is that certain species need more or less humidity than others and things like that, so there's that to consider as well. But if they're species with similar needs, it can work with those caveats that I mentioned before. Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. Rented Guy says, no, sir, I was referring to Mexican dwarf crayfish. Okay, sorry about the confusion. Got so many different chats going on. Sometimes it's difficult. I lose track or cross my wires a little bit. So that makes sense. Okay, so Mr. Vivarium is talking about Geosisarma. Okay, Geosisarma dennerle. Cool. Potato Derp says, I put the 3 male shrimp in the 60-gallon tank since the 10-gallon tank was supposed to be for raising the babies. Okay, cool. Rogers Aquarium says, Russ, have you ever kept coolie loaches and any tips on care? Yes, I have. I've had coolie loaches on a few occasions, and I really like them. They're quite amazing. I would suggest if you want to, once you get them going, they really do well. Sometimes when you first get them in, you can experience die-off depending on the source and so on. Can be a problem on occasion, but generally once you get them going, they're really hardy. And I had a population of 13, and I'm not entirely sure that they didn't breed. Sometimes they'll do that, where you get, if you keep a whole bunch of them together in a nice setup, you can be surprised by babies. And I'm not entirely sure I didn't have babies, but I'm not really sure either way. But I would say a couple of things. One, they tend to like slightly cooler water than some other fish, so don't keep them on the really warm side. Try to keep them on the cooler side of tropical. If you're, 74, 72 Fahrenheit, something like that, that would be great. They can do okay at higher temperatures, but they tend to like cooler water. They will breed better in softer water, from what I understand. And they like hiding places. They like a large number of coolie loaches. If you are keeping one coolie loach, you might not see it very often. If you're having 3, you might see them a little bit more often. But if you have, a dozen or 13 or something like that, they tend to be happier in larger groups. They tend to be more interesting because they'll be interacting more. They tend to like to tangle up with each other and pile up and so on. It's really interesting to feed them. They tend to smell the food, and you put something like bloodworms or brine shrimp or something that they can smell in the tank, and then you'll see them poke their noses out from their little hiding places. They do like a lot of hiding places, and then twitch their noses about in their little barbels, and then they'll find the food and they'll go after it. So that's fun. And they really like to tear around the tank. I've noticed that if you put them on sand, depending on the type of sand, I put them on Tahitian moon sand, which I've decided I don't really like, and this was some years ago. But they tended to knock the sand about a lot and kick up sediment out of the sand, and that was not fun. So I moved them and put them on something else. I think I put them on gravel, and they did better. So, Genius21, when is your next isopod video? Good question. I need to think about that. I'm going to be doing a lot of substrate replacement. It's been a while since I've replaced the substrate in some of my enclosures, so I'm going to be doing that soon. But do you have any specific requests for isopod videos? Because I'm certainly welcome those. Andrew Kerrigan said, would like a 16-quart of bigger container or bigger container work? Yeah, depending on which species you're putting together. Okay. Let's see. Backing up here. Mikiam. Oh, hi. I also vote for a new isopod video. I'm wearing the old one out. Okay. Yeah, I'm totally happy to do another isopod video. If you have any specific requests on what you would like featured in the video or what you'd like me to talk about, I would be very interested in hearing it. And thank you, Mickey M, for joining the live stream. Excited to see you here. Mr. Vivarium, talk to you later. Okay, you're out. Thank you for joining us. Glad you came. Potato Derp said, I know something fun I could do with the 10-gallon tank. I could put a few Daphnia magna in there and watch them populate the tank. Infinite fish food. Yeah, you can get a lot of Daphnia in a 10-gallon tank. And I get a ton in my 20-gallon. So that could be a good source of it. Robert Gear, speaking of coolie loaches, could they live with a betta? I've been thinking about it for a while. They could. It can be done if you keep the tank. And like I said, coolie loaches like it a little cooler than bettas do, the ideal temperature. But if you're on the slightly low end for the betta and a slightly high end for the coolie loaches, you could probably do it. And Veronid Guy said, Potato, you could do the same with scuds. Thanks again, Russ. Yeah, you're welcome. I'm glad. Are they doing well for you, the scuds? Potato Derp said, I've learned my mistake. You need to harvest from a Daphnia tank for them to keep breeding. Indeed you do. And I have to harvest from mine quite a bit. Otherwise they reach their carrying capacity pretty much and they really level off. They won't stop entirely, but they'll certainly slow down. Veronid Guy said, Russ, would the different color morphs of coolie loaches hang out together, or they generally stick to the same color type? In my experience, I've kept more than one type together and they don't seem to care. Seem to work just fine. I haven't had black coolie loaches yet, and I would really like to try those, partly because they are supposedly better at breeding in harder water. I've seen some really interesting videos where people keep black coolie loaches in a tank that has some really coarse grade gravel or pebbles in it so that the eggs slip in between the pebbles, and then you just look in the tank and you see tiny little black coolie loaches scooting around in there. They don't seem to mind the harder water or the high pH, and the other coolie loaches seem to have a harder time breeding in it. But yeah, I've kept the coolie loaches, like the Myers loaches, which I believe are the ones that kind of have the half-banded body, and then the ones that have the bars all the way down, and I've kept those together. It doesn't seem to matter. Let's see. Fangs and Fins. Hi, Russ. Just tuned in at the end of a very busy day here at work. Excellent. Thanks for joining us, Mick. You should check out Mick's video. Mick's videos. He's got a pet store. He runs a pet store that's specifically reptiles and fish. So, and well, amphibians and things like that too. But that kind of stuff, the kind of things I make my videos about. And he is a long-time listener of the podcast. He was there from years and years ago, and he has this great pet store and has been producing a lot of great videos lately about the setups that he does and the species he keeps, so you should check it out. Brandon Guy said, also, have you found that coolie loaches will eat smaller snails, like small ram's horns and Malaysian trumpets? I'm trying to think. I've never really noticed coolie loaches eating snails much. So that, yeah, they probably do on occasion, but they're not the kind of snail eaters that a lot of the loaches are. They don't do it as nearly as much. Okay. So, Cedar says, would love an ISO video about your different setups for different species. Cool. I could do that because it's important to show, certain things like factors for ventilation and humidity and cover and types of substrate, the differences. That's a good idea. Different types of food, temperature. Good idea. I need to remember that. Can you put a comment on this video after we're done with the live stream? Can you put a comment that says that? Because I'm more likely to remember it if I see it there and I can take a screenshot of it and write it down on my list of videos to make. That is a good idea. Rented Guy said, yes, the scuds are breeding like wildfire. They like to eat zucchini and fish flakes once they soften up. Yep, good. Glad they're doing so well for you. Potato Derp says, I think my old Daphnia culture crashed because I didn't harvest from it. Yeah, two things that really help Daphnia keep going, harvesting and water changes. Unlike some other vernal pool organisms that don't seem to need the water changes as much, Daphnia seem to need it to keep going. 21 flightless birds. Sin has returned. Oh, welcome. And Mickey M says, my coolies ate snails. Cool, okay. So that's good to know. I never really noticed that mine did, and it may just be because I didn't keep them with snails, or maybe I just forgot because it's been a while since I've kept coolie loaches. So good to know. Thank you for bringing that up. So did they eat any specific species of snails, or were they not particular? How did that go? Good information there. Wow, we're doing well here today. It looks like we've got 25 likes so far, and we have 18, 17 in the house. So I'm excited. We've still got about 20 minutes to go in the live stream. I'm open to your questions. I am excited that so many people are coming and that this method of posting it beforehand seems to work. Camila Stevens says, I'm just waiting to see what Russ wants to talk about. Okay. Well, I have a lot of projects going. Dinosaurs Terror World is back. I think one of my next projects is going to be the CO2. I'm still debating over whether to go do-it-yourself yeast CO2 system for my Endler's tank, or if I'm going to do citric acid and CO2. So if any of you have any feedback on that, because like Veranid Guy was saying, I think it was, if I want to go pressurized CO2, well, I'd rather do that, but it's a lot more expensive, so I'm going to go cheaper and do one of those other two, but I'm not sure. I've done the do-it-yourself yeast CO2 for years, and I just haven't done it. I mean, I did it for years and then haven't done it for several years. I'm deciding what to do there. So Dinosaurs Terror World says, how is Tiki 2? Tiki 2 is our gecko that was hatched without a father, a parthenogenic gecko, and he's doing fairly well. He still, he has his eye problem that as he grows is becoming more pronounced because one eye did not grow and the other did, but he is still doing fairly well, and he's growing. He's eating a lot. He's kind of crazy that way in how he eats. Sometimes when I put my hand in the tank, and I think it's partly because he can't see very well, he will attack my hand. And so yeah, he's doing pretty well. He seems to also have, as he's getting older, it's more apparent as he grows, but he seems to have a slight deformity in his hip area too. It's nothing that impairs his mobility or anything, but I think it's related to his eye issues. Just there were not that one caused the other, but they were both basically birth defects that he had. Let's see. So I'm going down. Okay, Junkhead says, is it better not to keep a light on a scud culture? I've done it both ways, and honestly, I haven't noticed a difference. The only benefit I've noticed to having a light on it is that algae grows and then the scuds eat it. So, that's good. It helps maintain the water quality because you're sequestering some of the nitrates and so on, but also they eat it and it gives them something to graze on during the day. So all the time. They all have something to graze on all the time. Let's see. Mickey M says, I'm not fluent in snail species, but they were the small ones that exploded in most of my freshwater tanks. Maybe if I heard the name, I would remember. Well, if they're the vaguely kind of oval football shape, not like the ram's horn curl shape, but sort of a football shape, they may be, sometimes those are called pond snails or pest snails. I believe the scientific name is Physa, spelled with a PH. You could do a Google search for PHYSA and see if they look like that. Maybe that's the one we're talking about. That seems like a likely one for them to eat if they're going to eat a snail. Camellia Stevens says, do citric acid, is so much more effective. Cool, I may try that. Genius21, are you planning to have another isopod hive? Definitely, definitely. I want to try quite a few others. I want Porcellio magnificus for sure, which is like my Titans, just about the same size, but orange. Definitely want to try that one. Probably some of the other Spanish species, and let's see what else I want to try. The duckies from Thailand are really cool, and the pandas from Thailand, really cool. I want to try that. So probably lots of other species too. I want to get, what is it? Armadillium granulatum, which is like a pill bug, like a normal pill bug, but a lot bigger. So yeah. Okay, I'm just trying to catch up everyone here. Let's see where we are. Let's see. Rented guy. Oh, Camellia Stevens says, no, wait, I need to go back a little further. Dinosaurs Terror World says, are Daphnia good for lobsters as food? Well, they'd probably have a hard time eating them. Like you're talking about freshwater crayfish. Is that what you're talking about? They'd probably eat them if they could catch them, or if you put frozen ones in, because they eat just about everything. But probably not the ideal food if they're just zipping around in the water. It'd be hard for them to catch. That's what I'm thinking. Rented guy says, no, I'm going further back, sorry. Camellia Stevens says, I've done all three and honestly like my pressurized system. Yeah, that's what I hear, that it's more expensive to set up, but it's cheaper to maintain and less work to maintain, which I like all that. So if I could get it cheaply, I probably would go that way. Let's see. But I'll see. Maybe I'm just going to go with what I've got for now, and then if I really like what I'm getting with that CO2, I may just upgrade eventually when I can afford it. Brennan Guy says, how do you prefer to do water changes? Sorry guys, I'm so backed up. I'm trying to catch up here. How do you prefer to do water changes? I recently started using a Python and I was skeptical at first, but it really is life-changing in terms of water changes. I agree, and that's what I use. I have used a Python for a long time. I think I first got a Python when I'm trying to remember when it was, but I had a 55-gallon tank, and I just, not too long after getting it, I was like, I need to do something else, and got a Python, and I've had one ever since. I even basically built one out of like a waterbed filler and I just took a gravel washer and some other parts, some hose connections, and built one when I couldn't get one. I think it was in Hawaii. I couldn't get one, and I built one. But yeah, I've had a couple of them and had to replace parts then here and there over the years, but I've had one that would probably be something like close, almost 20 years, maybe 18 years or so, and would never go back unless I ended up with only a couple of tiny nanotanks, which I hope I'm never reduced to just having a couple tiny nanotanks. Nothing wrong with nanotanks, just I want to have more than just that. Potato Derp says, Buffalo beetle remind me of yellow crazy ants, the way they pile up and demolish their food. Yeah, kind of like my shrimp in the time-lapse video, if you check that one out. Down the Wormhole says, do you have pH spikes with the yeast system? You can. My water's so hard that the buffering capacity in the water helps. I think we get a little bit of pH variation between day and night, but it's never anything that's bothered my fish. I never had issues with it. I think I did do-it-yourself yeast CO2 for about 6 years and never had a problem with it. Not saying there wasn't some pH fluctuation between night and day, but honestly, and I think in a lot of natural systems, fish sometimes get that too. And so as long as it's, it's not super sudden and it's not a really great difference, I think it seems to be manageable and did well with it. So Fangs and Fins Shop says, coolies are great for eating small snails. Black ones are nice. I have to say I prefer the banded. Yeah, okay, well that's good to know. Another Mickey M and Fangs and Fins both have that experience with coolies eating snails. Dinosaurs Terror World says, I get my shirt and it looks awesome. When do we get to see it? I want to see it. Robert Gear says, since your leopard gecko has been on the BioDudes products for a while, how's that going? It's going great. Yeah, the setup looks almost like it did when we set it up. Haven't had to clean any of the actual feces out. Urates a couple of times in 7-8 months, not bad. She seems to be doing really well. She's starting to get active here in the spring. The plants are growing too much, some of them, so I'm actually thinking of changing it. And someday, this is what I want to do, and maybe I've mentioned this before, but what I would really love to do is switch out that tank for a 29 gallon, so it's higher. Get an LED light that goes all the way along the top and do a terraced setup with some larger slabs of cork bark and so on, so it looks kind of like rock faces, and with the substrate, and do sort of a terraced multi-level thing going on, and kind of like what Fangs and Fins Shop has on one of his videos recently. That's what inspired me to think about doing it, and set that up so that I then put a whole bunch of succulents all kind of along the back growing up there, and a few here and there other places, but I want to do something like that. So thanks for the idea, Mick. Fangs and Fins Shop says, I also just got myself a Python water changer, not been easily available here in the UK. What a difference doing changes on the multiple tanks in the shop. Oh, I can imagine. Yeah, with a whole shop full of tanks, that would be something. Dinosaurs Terror World, how's my new profile picture? Oh, I can't really see it very well right now. I'll have to check it out later when I can go to your website, because it's a little bit too small in the chat. Brandon Guy says, down the wormhole, you're going to have pH fluctuations with CO2 regardless. However, I'd imagine that the fluctuation will be a lot more mild with DIY because you're injecting less than pressurized. That makes a lot of sense. Dinosaurs Terror World, did your daughter's leopard gecko ever bite you? Yeah, occasionally, but only when she misses. She misses a cricket or a mealworm and accidentally bites me. It's never been a big issue. It doesn't hurt too much. Congratulations for 7K subs. Thank you. And I just topped 7,600 today, so thank you everyone. Past 7,600, and it looks like at this rate, by within a month, I'll be at 8,000. So I really, really appreciate everybody's support. And speaking of support, 26 likes. That is really nice. Thank you, everyone. Potato Derp says, my mantis babies love to eat honey. Why is this? That seems unusual for a predator. Well, that is a good question. I'm guessing that mantids probably encounter honeydew from aphids on the surface of plants and possibly nectar in the wild, and that it's just an extra nutrient source for them. Mourning geckos do the same thing. They will lick up sweet things, even though a lot of their diet is insects. They will lick honeydew from aphids. They will go after nectar and flowers, presumably, and in places like Hawaii, where they encounter a lot of people, you can find them if you leave, say, a soda or something with a little bit in a glass. They will come and lick that out because it's sweet. So it's kind of funny. I think that it's just an example of opportunism. I'm excited with my little mantis to try some honey with him. I don't know whether it's male or female yet, but I'm excited to try that too because it sounds fun to just be able to give them that kind of treat. Dinosaurs Terror World. Yeah, he asks about if I've kept ants before, and I have. It's been a long time, but I had an ant colony with a queen for about 3 years. Started Off Solid says, hey, I found some weird teeny round looking bugs in my Porcelaria scabbard enclosure on a piece of Bugs Burger. I tossed it away and cleared leaves out with them. Some kind of mite, I think. Yep, sounds like a mite. Probably a grain mite. Kind of annoying. I think one thing to think about is that the mites they tend to be more common in a newer culture, and as the isopods breed and reproduce, they tend to outcompete them more. But you do have to be careful and make sure that they don't overtake them in the meantime. One thing that can really help is keeping springtails with your isopods. It can be, they help to outcompete the mites as well. So I would recommend that. I've noticed many fewer issues with mites when I have springtails in my cultures. So, where are we? Oh, did any of your isopod cultures get infected with mites before? I've seen them in them, but I haven't had any big issues with them for a long time. And I think part of that is I ended up with some predatory mites, which eat the other mites. A while ago, I got some in with millipedes, and they got into my cultures. And now I have lots of springtails in most of my cultures as well. And a lot of them are full of isopods as well. So they sort of outcompete the mites. I haven't had really big issues. I did get some in my mealworm enclosures not too long ago, but I just let them dry out a little bit more, and that usually takes care of that. So, Dinosaurs Terror World, did you raise wild caught worms before? Yeah, I've done that, but I prefer to raise red worms. They tend to work better in a captive environment. Oh yeah, so Potato Derp was asking why buffalo beetles are called buffalo beetles. They're only the size of a grain of rice, and Potato Derp and Veranid Guy says maybe they're found eating buffalo carcasses. Yeah, I wonder what that is. Why that is. So Dinosaurs Terror World, will you get a bearded dragon? Maybe someday. Are mourning geckos rare to find in pet shops? I've only seen mourning geckos in pet shops once, but it probably depends on where you are. But yeah, I don't think they're terribly common. Rented Guy says, Russ, you deserve all the success you get. Seriously, your channel is quickly becoming my favorite. Well, thank you. I really appreciate that. Makes me happy. Dinosaurs Terror World says, my dubia roaches are breeding like crazy now. I bet your African fat-tailed gecko loves that. Rogers Aquarium, what is your favorite pizza joint? Good question. Well, there's one in a city called Padova, Italy, called Dove Come Quando, which means where, how, when. It's kind of a funny name for a pizzeria, but I loved that one. That was one of my favorites. There was another one called Lo Stocco, which is a word for dagger. Another funny name for a pizza place, but I really liked that one a lot. And then there was one that I visited when I was visiting Rome, and I don't remember the name, unfortunately, but it was right outside the Vatican and in the wall kind of surrounding that area, and it was incredible. So those are probably 3 of the best I've ever visited in my life. Let's see. Sorry, everyone, trying to catch up. I think I've been skipping some, but I'm trying to catch on. Rogers Aquarium says, you should promote your 7 easy steps to live foods. A lot of YouTubers might not know. That's true. Yeah. I do have a book called The Aquarimax Guide to 7 Easy Live Foods. You can buy it on Amazon. And it is like basically a more detailed version of what I've got in some of my videos for 7 live foods, not just for fish, but for reptiles and amphibians. They're all fairly small foods that you can raise. And yeah, if you haven't checked it out, you should. Thank you for the tip and the shout out, I guess, of my book. If I wouldn't have thought of it if you hadn't mentioned that. So Dinosaurs Terror World, what feeder animals are you planning on getting in the future? 2 I've thought of trying out are superworms, of course. People ask about that one. Well, I can tell you more than 2. Waxworms, I want to try culturing those. Silkworms, maybe hornworms, blackworms, and I'm probably going to set up some bloodworms this summer outside because people are always asking for it. The thing is, bloodworms, you don't get a whole lot of production out of them, but they're still a good food, and a lot of times you'll get a culture that has both blackworms and mosquito larvae in it, so why not? Because mosquito larvae are a lot more prolific, so in my opinion, a lot more worth producing. Of course, you have to make sure you don't let any of them escape, so which isn't that hard. You just dump whatever you don't use out before they can metamorphose, if you do have any of those. Dinosaurs Terror World, did you buy animals from Amazon before? I never have. I've purchased things from Amazon, but never live animals yet. Random guy says, Russ, I think you have the right idea regarding your CO2 plan. Cool. Yeah, we'll see how it goes. I'm kind of excited to try it again, honestly, partly because I'm sick of watching my tank be, just kind of, the plants are not doing awfully, but they're not doing how they do when I did CO2. I just remember the magic of CO2 when I first started it, which was, 14 years ago or something like that. I was so excited. I had this little 10-gallon tank in my office at work, and I said, I'm just going to try it, see what happens. Plugged in that CO2, and just boom, everything took off, and I was amazed. And I didn't stop doing it. Had it on 2 or 3 tanks for years and years. Loved it. So I'm excited to see that again. Let's see. Yeah, I'm not entirely caught up, everyone. I'm still searching here. Oh, Dinosaur Terror World. How's the High Yellow project getting on? It's doing well. I need to get in there and change the subject to the substrate to stimulate reproduction in my culture. But yeah, they're doing well. I've got quite a few high yellows. Your powder isopods are breeding noticeably and have a lot of babies. Excellent. Dinosaur Terror World. Did you get a species of isopod by mistake? Well, yes. My beginning culture of dwarf whites came with other cultures. There were some in a springtail culture I got, and some in a giant orange or Spanish orange isopod culture. So that's where I got that species. I believe a similar thing happened with dwarf striped. I had some show up in my morning gecko vivarium, probably coming along with, I'm not sure, because I processed all the plants. I'm not sure where they came from. I think I sterilized the leaf litter too, but anyway, they were in there, so that's where I got my first ones there. And then when I got my Oniscus ocellus culture, there were Porcellio scabbers in there, and that's where my wild type Porcellio scabber culture came from. So Armanestra Pate says, are bloodworms easy to breed? No. Well, I guess I should say they're not easy. They're easy enough to get to get some by putting. You put a bucket outside and you let the water, you put like some grass or similar things, like some dried grass, and let it sit there for a while, and you can aerate it lightly if you want to discourage mosquito larvae, because the bloodworms aren't so particular, and you can get them to show up. I've done it quite a number of times, sometimes by accident, so it's fairly easy to do that. The only thing is they don't produce, and you don't get anywhere near the numbers you do with mosquito larvae or a lot of other live foods. So in terms of producing them in quantity, they're not easy in my experience, but producing them at all, they're fairly simple. So kind of a complicated answer, I guess, but hopefully that helped. Started Off Solid says, Aquarimax, you should make some videos about millipedes. I would love one on Florida ivories. Yeah, I should make some more on millipedes. I have some on my other channel, 10 Gallon Zoo, a couple, but I haven't really done a whole lot with that channel. But I do have a couple with some of my millipedes on that channel. But yeah, I should do some millipedes. Yeah, would you mind putting a comment at the end of this video once it's over so that I can write that down? That would be great. Genius21, have you seen your isopods shed? Yes, in fact, I have a really old video on my channel, I think it's still there, of one of them shedding, actually in the active molting, one of my Spanish orange molting. So Brubby TV says, hello, I've just started a mealworm bin for our 3 chickens. Should I heat it to hopefully speed up production? It should go a little faster if you heat it. I would say be careful with that though. You don't want to overheat it. And the different methods of heating, it would be worthwhile to talk about which methods you're using for heating. But as long as if it's a matter of moving it from one warm place or a cooler place to a warmer place in your house, then yeah, I would do that. Potato Derp said, why have a few of my mantis nymphs stopped growing, become very crippled and died? What disease is this? Ooh, well, that's a good question. I'm not sure. They became very crippled. Was it a bad molt? That kind of thing? They stopped growing and they tried to molt and then they died? That could be an issue, although what's causing it, I'm not sure. Rented Guy says, CO2 really is incredible stuff for plants. Nary a speck of green spot algae on new growth since starting it. Luckily, the existing green spot doesn't spread. Yeah, it is amazing. Dinosaur Terror World, love your channel. Well, thank you. I appreciate that a lot. Branded Guy says, do you have hobbies outside of aquariums and vivariums? I do. I don't have time to pursue as many of them as often as I would like to, but yeah, I do. And some of them are related, like I like to go herping, just to go out and see reptiles, amphibians, and invertebrates in their natural habitat. We're going to be doing that with my family in 2 weeks, less than 2 weeks. In beginning of April, we're going to go out to the desert, a place that I used to go when I was a kid for herping, where you could find gopher snakes and many types of lizards and centipedes and rattlesnakes and all kinds of things. So we're going to go out and do that. So there are some others too. I used to take martial arts classes. I haven't been able to take a class for a while, but I still do some of that. And that's another one of my hobbies as well. And of course, I love to read and things like that. But again, I don't get as much time as I used to for that. I like to read a lot of science fiction and fantasy, as well as information about animals, of course. Dinosaurs Terror World says, I wish that you hit 100 million subs one day, my friend. I hope so too. That would be cool. And Potato Derp says, it doesn't seem to be related to molting. Huh. And they're getting enough food and everything. I remember you said you're just leaving food in there all the time. Rented Guy said, oh man, I haven't been herping in years. That sounds like a lot of fun. Yeah, I haven't been on a dedicated herping trip for a long time either. And I just figured we've got to go do it. All my kids are excited to do it. Kelly's on board too. So it should be fun. Maybe I'll make a video. If I manage to get some good footage, I'll make a video. Because that's related to aquarium and vivarium pets, right? Genius 21, my isopods got killed by mites. What type of mite is this? Ooh. Did the mites overrun the colony, or did they, in small numbers, did they kill them? Because that could be a different thing. That's scary though, either way. All right. So Sua says, have you ever tried one of those sealed off pond ecospheres? Now, are you referring to the type with the small shrimp in it? Like the small reddish shrimp? Those are, if that is what you're referring to, then we're talking about opaiula. And those are the type of shrimp that I keep. I did, in fact, purchase one of those to increase the bloodline diversity in my other setup, because I got some opaiula from another source. It was not a sealed ecosphere. Got it from someone who had a pond, an ancheline pond, which is where they naturally live, on his property, and had a license to collect them. And I got some from him, and he shipped them to me from another island. And then I was in a market, and then I saw this other one, and so I added them together so I would have more bloodlines. So I took it apart. I didn't keep it a sealed ecosphere. It was kind of, you could just kind of remove the sealed lid, and it was fine. So I've done that, but other than that, I have not. Rented Guy said, yeah, I found a lot less time to sit down and just read a book after having kids, but the kids are worth it. True, I agree, definitely. Zeracool Ninja 88 says, you're still streaming. Nice, I'm on lunch break. Excellent, glad you could join us. I guess I'm almost done, but I can keep going for a few more minutes. Genius 21 says, it looked like they were sucking up their blood. They were on their back. Oh, yeah, that's nasty. If you've got the kind of mite that is sucking their blood, that's bad news. There's a couple of things you can look into. I would look into predatory mites, because the predatory mites will eat those mites. Because I would imagine, I'm not sure, but I imagine any type of Chemical mite remedy would be just as bad for your isopods as it would be for the mites. So yeah, I would look into predatory mites if you're still having that problem. That is something I hope you never have to encounter again. I hope never to encounter it. I've never had to deal with the parasitic mites, but yeah, the predatory mites may be a good possible option for you. And you can get those from garden supply stores. Sometimes, I believe, people who keep reptiles and amphibians supplies will sometimes sell those as well. But generally, you have to buy a whole lot of them because people are going to release them in a greenhouse to deal with a mite that's attacking plants or things like that. So you might have to buy far more than you need, but it may be an alternative for you. I was lucky enough to get the predatory mites just coming along with some millipedes. I guess someone along the line, before I had them, had purchased some of the predatory mites and kept them with their millipedes, and so I got some with their substrate. Well, we've got 28 likes already. That's nice. We've got 18 in the house. I really appreciate everybody coming today and supporting Aquarimax by being on the live stream. And I hope you continue to watch. We're going to have another live stream coming up on Tuesday and then a normal video on Friday if everything goes well. And I'd just like to give a reminder, like Roger, I think it was Roger who said, you can check out my book, The Aquarimax Guide to 7 Easy Live Foods. And, oh, Stephen Bamber just joined us. Hello and welcome. Another thing, if you would like a t-shirt like this one, Isopods Do Your Dirty Work. If you like this t-shirt, or you want to look at another Aquarimax t-shirt, you can go to teespring.com/Aquarimax. Check me out. I think that's how you get there. Or just do a search on Teespring for Aquarimax, and you can get one of those. Check out my new Patreon. I've got a few people already supporting, and any more, I would really appreciate it. If you can't or you don't want to, that's totally cool. Totally get it. But if you would like to, that would be great. It would really help me get some of my projects going a lot faster, because basically I have to support all my creatures on money that I make through my creatures, plus some of the money I make for the creatures goes towards supporting the family. So honestly, any help you could give would be totally helpful in getting that going. Okay. Oh, Roger's Aquarium. Yes. Oh, formerly Roger Dedham. Got it. Okay, makes sense. Down the wormhole. Thanks for the stream. I had fun lurking while cooking. Excellent. I'm glad I can fill that niche. That's always fun. Well, I'm going to have it go to 70 minutes, I think, because I want to make sure that if anyone has something else they would like to say, I want to make sure you have a chance to say it. If I missed something earlier, I know I didn't catch everything, so if anybody else has anything they want to say, also give you a chance if you haven't hit the like button and you would like to. If you'd enjoyed the stream, go ahead and give that a smash. Brandon Guy says, thank you so much for the stream and your engagement. Time to get to the tile. All right, well, thanks for joining us, Brandon Guy. You were here a big chunk of this time, if not all of it, so I really appreciate your support. You know, just watching the live stream, whether you're lurking and cooking or you're participating a lot, either way, I really appreciate it. One, I'm just glad that you're here and you're enjoying it. That makes me happy just for that reason. And another reason is because every minute you watch is increasing the stats on my YouTube channel, which makes more people end up getting to see my YouTube channel. Arministra says, bye-bye from UK. It's been smashing. Excellent. Thank you for joining. Really appreciate it. And Cedar, thank you for all your great info and your awesome attitude. Well, everybody's making me smile today, so I really appreciate all of it. And Robert Gear says, thanks for the entertainment and information. Well, I'm glad it's both. That makes me happy too. Potato Derp, bye, great stream, great channel. Thank you, Potato Derp. We have so many of you who have supported Aquarimax for so long, and so many of you who are now joining and are new, and I appreciate all of you. I'm excited about it. I'm going to be doing some work in my animal room today, doing some organization, some moving things around, and some cleaning, as well as doing a water change today, of course, which I generally do on Saturdays. So I'll be busy doing all the critter stuff. And I hope that you have a great day. Thank you, Stephen Bamber, for joining. I'm sorry it was right at the end, but I'm glad you're joining. I'm going to be releasing some videos soon probably one of feeding my mantis. It is really cute to watch the mantis eat, so hopefully you don't mind the bugs, and because it's really fun to watch the little creature eat. She is such a, he or she, I don't know, such an interesting hunter. So if you want to check that out, that's coming up, and lots of other things. I'm going to do a video, I think, soon about some of the projects I'm hoping to do, like dedicate it and explain them, more in depth. So those are some ideas, and thank you for your ideas. If you have, like I mentioned to some of you before, if you have a specific request that you'd like me to work on as a video, please leave it as a comment after this video is finished, because then I'm more likely to remember it. All right, well, I guess we're about done. Thank you to everyone for joining us, and have a great day.